Hello folks, I'm going to try to make a quick recording that just skims through all the stuff we should need, as opposed to the other ones that explain things. I'm trying to make the quickest one yet for people that are trying to catch up. So I am using Unity 2022.3.62 F1, which is what you should have on your computers. If you have Unity 6, don't use it. It's the newest one, but we have to use a slightly older version because of student privacy laws. So when you go to New Project, click Universal 2D here. That's when we want to use to make sure that version is on 2022.3.62 F1. I think yours is LTS. That stands for long-term stability or long-term support, just meaning it's a very stable version. So that and Universal 2D there, and then name it. And here, if you can choose local project, do that. This is where it will be going. Version control is useful, but since we're not signed in and everything for student privacy, we can't really use that. So hit create project. It's going to make one here. It takes a moment to start. Once again, we're making sure our version is 2022.3. So you should also make sure that you've got your Piscal graphics made, or whatever other medium you choose. So on that, you would want to do something like, if you're an Illustrator, I think you can make spreadsheet from there. From Adobe Animate, if you animate there, you have to make your graphic into a symbol and have it animated as a symbol. Then from the libraries panel for symbol, you can click generate spreadsheet. On Piscal, you just have to go to export PNG, and then from there you have the option to choose spreadsheet. I'll show you that real quick while we're waiting for that. Be aware that the .piscal file you might have downloaded is a save file, it is not a graphic file, so that will not work. It is good to save your progress that way, but what we actually need is a .png file. I'll browse local saves, see if I have something here. Okay, so this is multiple frames on multiple layers. So I'm going to take this one, export, PNG, and then down here in spreadsheet file export, pay attention to this. So my size, I want it to be 50 by 50 pixels if I were doing that. For this one here, let's go ahead and just say it's 50 by 50. If I want to resize the content with it, I'll say that. Make sure these stay the same. Resize. Okay, and then I can go to export, PNG, spreadsheet download. So this guy, let's see, because it's several rows high, it's 3 columns high, that's 50 times 3 is 150. Same for 3 rows, so 9 frames. I'll go ahead and download that. That should be a .png file. Alright, so back in Unity, here's my new project. So I'll go through this kind of quickly. First thing I want to do is right click here in the hierarchy. I'm going to say create empty. I will title that player. Now I'll have this highlighted, click on it again, and I'll do create empty animation. Notice this is indented because since I had this selected when I did create empty, this is a child of this. This is attached to this. This is the parent object. This one more time, and we'll do create empty, lowercase ground, uppercase check, like that. It's what we call camel case. So first word's lowercase, second word starts with a capital. Alright, so for player here, in the old videos I had you assign a sprite to this, but for this we're going to put all the animation sprites in here. So to give it a look, I'm going to drag and drop one of those PNG files I talked about into the assets panel here. So I'll look in my downloads, that's most likely where it is. I'll drag WiseWalk 1 down here, I get this. When I click on it, I have options up here. So since I made it 50 by 50, I'll click that. There's multiple pictures on that one sheet, so I'll click that. And then it doesn't hurt to change this to no filter if you're worried about compression, because this puts some compression on it. It can be a little blurry if you have a high-res image, but since I have a simple pixel image, I don't really need to. So once these two are set, these are the most important. You hit Sprite Editor. Now Piscal told us we had 3 rows and 3 columns, so that makes it easy. We could go through here and do it by cell size, 50 by 50, or by cell count. So since Piscal already told me I have 3 rows, 3 columns, in that sprite export I can do that. You'll see the red lines line up. I hit slice, and then I hit apply. Now it's cut up. Okay, so when I have this, then I can click this and see those. So this is my walk cycle. I might click from here and hold shift and click to here to select all of these. Right click, and I can include these in an animation by right clicking them while they're selected, going to create, and then doing animation. And while this is still selected, I will type in walk. Now, I haven't made a jump for this. I'm going to actually bring in some other graphics I have here, because I think for my shop one I already have some stuff. So this one here, you can actually see what to do if you have multiples. So same thing here, this one is 50, it is multiples, sprite editor, apply, and now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I could cut up by that if I wanted to. So let's change it by cell count. So I have 6 columns, 4 rows, and it's going to look like that. Slice, apply. Now this one here actually has multiple different things in it. So this is a jump. So I'll hold shift, click this, hold shift, click this, right click them, create animation. And I will name that jump. I want to delete the walk I already have here, so I'm going to click it, hit delete. I'll make a new walk. So my new walk starts here and ends here. Oops, actually there is one more. I didn't see it goes over to here. So create animation, walk. I'll choose just this one and create one called fall, because fall is kind of a single thing. So I've got full jump walk. Okay, I'll make sure I'm saving frequently. Alright, so a couple of things you sort of have to have before you can do the rest of this. So you have to have in Package Manager the 2D stuff. So here you don't want to see what's in your project. You want to see what all of Unity has. So if you change that to Unity Registry, you'll be checking for that. I'm going to put input in the search bar. Make sure this input system is installed. If it is not, hit install. It might save your project, close it, and reopen it. Alright, so we got our input manager. We're also going to check the 2D stuff, sprite, animation, etc. If it says unlock, that's fine. It's just the installs you need to worry about. If it says install, install it. Okay, that looks good. Now here, if you go to edit, preferences, make sure external tools is set to Visual Studio Code, not community. So whichever version of Visual Studio Code we happen to have on these computers. That's probably the right one. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else we have to change here. think that should be it for this. Then we'll go through to edit once again. This time we'll do project settings. So one thing, if you go to player here, and then scroll down to where it says other settings, it'll look like this. It might be sideways. You have to click this to bring it out. If we scroll down part way, you're going to see something that says active input handling. Change that to both. The other way you could do that is just type right in search. It's going to bring you right to here. So you don't want the old system or new system, you want both. That'll make sure it works no matter which way you do it, because they have different ways they would handle the user typing commands. Okay, let's get rid of this. Click on Input Manager. I think that should already be checked for you. Input System. Okay, now one thing I noticed is later when we're making an input manager that takes all of how the user uses commands, like if they're using WSD keys, if they're using control stick, whatever, sometimes that doesn't show up here. So here in input system package, I think we might need to hit create and assign default project what action set. And see, this takes all the moves, crouches, etc. And that puts this input system down here, so we have it to use. So input system package here in the project settings is another one. Version control, we're not using that, but outside of class where you don't have the same privacy concerns, you'd definitely be using that. It's kind of like GitHub. Okay, we'll close this. Make sure you save again. So our player is going to have several things. Notice that you can, this is called drilling down when you have one of these triangles that will hide or show information that's inside something else. So I'm going to drill that down. Player, we need to add some components to it. So the first thing we're going to add, create C# script. It's going to look like that, and we can kind of name it whatever we want. I'll put player control. And this is sharp. I know y'all call it a hashtag nowadays, but it was the sharp sign, or the pound sign when I was young. Okay, so if we double click this, it will open in the external editor we chose, which should be VS Code. So this is a simple start script from Unity. It's got some basic stuff up here. If you go to Classroom, though, you can choose Game Design here. And if you go down to one of the newest code sections I had, so this, June 9th, edited October 30th. This isn't part of the code, this is me telling you something, but after that, if you want to select everything from here down to the end of that post, and make sure you get it all the way to that last bracket. Then hit Control C to copy it. Then you can go back over here to VS Code. Hit Control A to select all of it, because you don't want to paste it after this. You'll have some duplicate commands. You want to replace all of this. So Control A to select all, Control V to paste this. Now, if you're using older systems, it's going to have a problem with this linear velocity because it is used in 6, but it is not used in the 2022 version we're doing. So select linear velocity like this. Hit Control F for find. Drill this down. And replace it with just lowercase velocity. Then what you're going to do is you're going to hit replace all, or Control Alt Enter here. This is going to replace all the linear velocities with lowercase velocity all at once. And you're going to see a bunch of those little red arrows go away. Now these say velocity. Okay, now you don't want to replace anything like this. You might have in there just the ones that were linear velocity. That's why I select it first, to make sure it's linear velocity getting replaced. And this does have to change from an uppercase here to a lowercase. Okay, so I'll X out of here, and I will hit Control S to save this. Now, cool part about this code editor, when you save it, it should automatically update here in Unity. It might generate some error codes sometimes because, I guess it doesn't yet because we haven't included anything. Okay, I'm going to click on player, and I'll hit this little lock up here because I want to drag stuff here. The problem is when you click on this, it will then open up the inspector for what you're trying to drag in here. I want to keep the player open and locked here while dragging stuff into it. So I'll take my script here and drag it here till I see this blue line with a little plus. Now for this rigid body, what that is in the script, it has some things where it is taking some physics stuff here, public rigid body, and it's giving it the name RB, and it's got all this code for it. So what we're doing here is we're going to associate our object here with the rigid body that's in the code. The easiest way to do that is take player and drag it to this rigid body thing here. Actually, I guess we can't do that yet. Go ahead and click on player. We have to add one down here. So in the search, I'll type rigid and rigid body 2D. I think we should be able to drag that one up here. There we go. Okay. For the animator, I'm going to drag this animation into this one here, if it lets us. If not, that's okay. Later, we're going to make an animator controller too, so I think that will go in there. So let's do create animation controller player. We're going to use this to control animations later, but for now, let's see if it lets us put that in there. Nothing yet, so we'll come back to that. Okay. Ground check. We're going to take ground check. Notice it's spelled. Actually, it's not spelled the same way. Never mind. But you do have to have this lowercase and uppercase. The spelling matters for this. We're going to drag that to transform. And then we are going to go up to layers here. We're going to do add layer. Let's try that again. Add layer. Oh, it's because this is locked. I forgot. Okay, unlock that player. Now we're going to go here. It doesn't really matter which of these you go in. And we're going to type ground layer, exactly like this one is spelled and how it's said in our script. Or sorry, I shouldn't say is this one, but like if I back out of here and go back to player, it needs to look sort of like it does in the script, which is ground layer, just like that. It has to be spelled the same way and same lack of spaces and everything. You can even copy this one if you want. If you just hit Control C, then when you go here, you can do add layer and then paste it in. So this ground layer is how we're going to tell later if they're touching the ground. Anything that is ground has to be on that ground layer. So just to show you what that might look like, I will do right click, 2D object, sprites, square, and I'll name that square platform. Now this platform has to be switched over to this ground layer or for the system to know that it's considered ground, something we should be able to jump off of and not fall through. So we'll come back to that, but make sure you add the ground layer now and switch to the ground layer. Okay, so player, we've got that set up, ground check, nothing. And then for rigid body, dynamic. For this part here where it says discrete, change that to continuous because we're always checking if the player is touching something. For constraints, go ahead and do that. Drill that down. Freeze rotation Z. Alright, we also need a collision detector. So that's often a box or circle depending on the shape of your character. I'm just going to do a box collider, 2D for now. Now let's go to animation. This is where we'll add the visual look of our character. So I will do a sprite render. And for that sprite, I'm just going to choose a normal SHOF. This would be kind of like a placeholder image. Now also we have a lot of visual garbage in the way here. So you can go up here. There's toggles of visibility of gizmos, and I want to turn some of these off. Now I'll keep selection outlines on, selection wire, but I might want to turn off some of these things. Like this one here for player input. Or you can try turning this off in general. You can turn them on for whole groups here. Maybe what I'll do, I want to specifically, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot this platform. I was thinking it was a camera icon, but this platform we do want to see still. So I'm going to use these controls to move it and then to scale it in one direction. We'll walk on this platform later. The camera thing, the main camera, you can turn it off here. I think that'll turn off the little icon. And we've got like world icon here. We could probably turn off with this gizmo here for now. Now, when we do the ground check is basically invisible. So one thing that can trip you up is having this off. Speaking of which, let's handle that ground check right now. So because we've put the ground check in here, it's going to transform and move with the player. But we do have to set the ground layer to that one we made. This is going to tell it that anything, when it's checking the ground, anything on this ground layer is what it should be paying attention to. And when you're touching the ground, it's got this Boolean true false that says you are grounded or you aren't. That's how we tell if you're double jumping or not. So what we need is a little thing below the character that moves with the character, because once again, it's a child of the character object. That sort of tells us where it is below the player that we're touching the ground. Okay, this should be it here, I think. This is ground check. So first of all, let's edit this box collider so we can pull on the handles and make it fit our character. And then down here, let's check the ground check size. So you kind of click here to change the size, but you click here to sort of move it. And it's tricky because when it's like this, you can't really see it so well. That's right. There should be a way to force us to be able to see that. But if I click up here, at least I can kind of visualize it. That helps me tell where to put it. Okay, that's probably good enough for the ground check. So we've got our box collider set around the character. We've got our ground check here set to ground layer, so we know which layer you can choose for each platform to make it consider the ground layer. And we've set one platform here to have the ground layer. The other thing any platform would need is some sort of collider. So some of you are doing it with tile maps. That's a different process for this. I'll use a simple box collider. It's pretty good about if it's a simple box, it just fits it. And you can see if I click this to edit it, it's got this simple green square around it. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see the points there to move it. Okay. So any platform would be static. So for this, I'm going to say it's static. That means it doesn't move or anything. Just out of curiosity, let's see what happens if I hit play here. Okay, folks, so I was having a few issues with this before, and I had to come home in the meantime, so I'm actually working on a different project now, even though it looks about the same. So I'll cover the blend trees a little bit more, but what I ended up doing for now is going from entry to this blend tree here. You can see that this is the threshold of x velocity. So going from idle to -1 or 1, depending on which way you go. All right, and then there's some weird artifacts on that. I don't think I took enough time to cut it off, and it's got part of a blue thing from another one, I think, but it's whatever for now. You can see the ground check there. For some reason, that doesn't show up a lot. I'll do some investigation into that, but you can kind of see it there. All right, and then rigid body here, player movement scripts, ground layer, drag to here, ground layer checked here. Remember, you can do add layer here to create a new layer, and that's where I made it. It has to be named exactly like that because that's what the code is looking for. And once you make that layer, you can set it to be this so it knows which one's the ground layer. Animation. I'll drag that there if you see that pop up. We might not need to do that because I had it set to child in the other one, so okay, I could put it in child. But that's right, whatever. Let me just make sure it still works. So in this version, he moves with the blend tree. I'm still working on the jump. It's a little messed up. But what we're basically going for here is that you can kind of see when it's running here. And jump from A state. So the idea with the jump is when grounded is true, when he's touching the ground, it goes from jump to walking or idle. But when he is not touching the ground and ground is false, then it goes to jump to do the jump animation. So I'm still working on that part here. Let's see. Jump, we just have a simple jump when it goes to here. Anyways, so as far as the script for that, I've added some stuff that I will go ahead and put in a doc for your add to classroom later. But the crux of some of what I've added is that we already have this in grounded that gets set up partway through one of the videos where you set up jumping. So we're setting up a Boolean and true false to grounded, and that's set up in one of the previous videos. I'm also saying is grounded is true. If you're grounded, then this variable, this Boolean true false is set to true and returned. And then that's what it's kind of using here in the animation. It's setting it, if it is grounded, that sets that variable to try and let it know true or false. So we'll be adding that in later for the jump. There's other ways to do it too. You could say like if space key is hit and you're grounded. For instance, you'll see the actual jump code here. This is getting directly from our input stuff, which you'll see in here, the input system here and here. Right, this is inputs from the left stick and stuff like that. So this is grabbing those contexts directly for when they're jumping for whatever it's set to be as jump. And then if the context performs, like they hit the key and they are grounded, that lets you jump. Now I set here is grounded to false. So if you're jumping, you're not grounded. So we're setting that to false. And same thing, if you do a partial jump to cancel it, is grounded as false. And then when you do touch the ground, when you are grounded, grounded is true. And then that's passed along to the animation here. So that's kind of what I have in the works here that way for this. If you are touching the ground, then it goes to the walk and jump animations on the ground. If you're not touching the ground, this is false, then it goes to the jump. And also from any state, if you leave the ground, it goes to jump. Anyways, we'll refine that later. Now, one of the issues I was having the other videos, though, was with the player and not being able to walk. So player input, at one point we were using player input manager, but now for this one, I've just switched it over to a player input. So for this one, I dragged this input system here. Now, if you don't have this input system, what you might need to do is go to Edit, Project Settings, Input System Package. If you go to Settings, you might need to turn that on. Or if you haven't set this up already, they have a button at the top. So like if I were to delete this action map, it would have one up here that says create like project-wide action map. So that sets all this up with all the movements and stuff. So if this isn't there, there'll be a button up here where you can hit to make that. So that's sort of how we got this. We've got our input system here too. On this one, when this is clicked, I did hit generate C# class names and apply. I can give you some stuff to use for later. But main point, once you get some of that stuff done, you can go here and add a player input and then drag that input action asset to here. And then when you go to events and player, you're going to be able to drag the player over to here or the player script. And then once that's dragged here, you'll have access to this player movement thing that I made here. See player movement. So you'll have jump and move. So what we need to do is in the player input, you can drag the player over here and go down player movement and move. And you want to do that for this move one up here, which says callback context. And then jump, you'll come down here, jump callback context. You'll drag the player over here. Or I see in this one I drag the script, so I guess try both, see which works. And then in here, go to player movement. Once again, the name of my script, it'll match that name. And then up here in the special part, you should have jump. So that's how you sort of attach those parts to that. So if everything's lined up in the code where it is getting this velocity for your rigid body, how it's moving as far as physics, and then it's getting your velocity here, gravity, this is the gravity section. Now horizontal movement is reading the context of X, like how you're moving left to right, and that's translating to horizontal movement. And you can see for the animation.setFloat, X velocity was what I made in that blend tree, but I'm using, since I already have this horizontal movement set up here, that gets, let's see, where did I originally set that up? Float horizontal movement. Oh yeah, horizontal movement. This reads the context to X, like which way they're going. So I'm just taking that, since we're already looking at the X axis, moving left to right. I'm just using it here to assign it to this animation's float of X velocity, which you'll see if I double click on idle. That is the one here. So usually it's right up here under 1D. Oh, there, X velocity. Okay, so it's taking that horizontal we already have in the script and add it to X velocity. So at this point, my character is basically working. I will try and do another video. I do have to go to bed for night because I have to get up for my airplane at 5 in the morning.